This video is on multiplying and dividing integers. So we've already learned how to add and subtract positive and negative numbers. We also learned about the double negatives, and now we're going to talk about multiplying and dividing. So we're going to start with some integer chips. You need to go ahead and take notes as you're watching the video. You can model your integer chips in your notes as I do it on the screen. Pause the video when needed so that you can keep caught up. Okay, our first problem says 2 times 4. Now remember, multiplication is taking groups of something. In this case, we're taking 2 groups of 4. So I'm going to need to go ahead and model that with my integer chips. Recall that the yellow chips mean positive, so I need 2 groups. Each group needs to have 4 positive chips. So there's one group of 4, and here is the second group of 4. So if I were to add them all up, I would get a positive 8. So 2 times 4 equals positive 8. Now what if I have 2 groups of negative 4? Well, I'm going to do the same thing. The red chips mean negative. So I'm going to make 2 groups where each group will have 4 negatives. So there's one group of negative 4, and I'll make another, and there is 2 groups of negative 4. So if I were to count them all up, I would get negative 8. So 2 times negative 4, or 2 groups of negative 4s, equals a negative 8. Now what if I change it and I say negative 2 groups of 4? Well, remember, negatives mean the opposite. So what we're saying is that we want the opposite of 2 groups of 4. So I can take my 2 groups of 4 that I made up here. Whoops. I guess it's not going to do that. I can take my 2 groups of 4 Here's one group, and there are 2 groups, and I want the opposite of that because it's negative 2. It's the opposite of 2 groups of 4. So the opposite of these positives would be negatives. So I would turn them into negatives. And when I count them all up, I get negative 8. There are 8 negatives. So negative 2 times 4 equals a negative 8. Now we have 2 negatives. Negative 2 times negative 4. So again, I want the opposite of 2 groups of negative 4. So I'm going to make my 2 groups of negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one group. Uh-oh. Guess I'm out of circles. And then I'll make another group. Okay, now I have 2 groups of negative 4, but it's not 2 groups of negative 4 that I want. It's the opposite of that. So the opposite of these negatives will be positives. So when I add them up, I get 8 positives. So negative 2 times negative 4 equals a positive 8. Okay, let's talk about dividing integers. Okay, first problem is 8 divided by 2. So remember, when you're dividing, that means you're taking your number and you're putting it into groups that are going to be the same size. So I have 8 positives, which are already displayed here, and I want to put them into 2 equal groups, 8 divided by 2. When I do that, each group is going to have 4. And because they're yellow, they're a positive. So 8 divided by 2 equals a positive 4. Now negative 8 divided by 2. So our whole number, our total amount is -8. So we have 8 negatives, and we want to divide it into 2 equal groups. So we're going to do the same thing, put them into 2 equal groups, and each group has 4 negatives. So 8 divided by -8 divided by 2 equals a -4. Our next problem has +8. Here's our +8 divided by -2. So we're saying we want to take these 8 and we want to put them into 2 equal groups, but we want the opposite of that. So let's go ahead and put it into our 2 equal groups. There we go. But now we need the opposite. So that means we are going to turn them into negatives. So each group has -4. So 8 divided by -2 equals a -4. And our last one, -8 divided by -2. So here's the -8, and we want to split these up into the opposite of 2 groups. So we're going to split them up into 2 groups, but we need it to be the opposite. So let's make our 2 groups. Each group will have 4, and do the opposite. The opposite of the positive is a negative. So you can see each group has +4. So -8 divided by a -2 equals a +4. So let's see if we can see a pattern or a rule for multiplying and dividing by positive and negative numbers. So when we multiplied 2 positive numbers, our answer was positive. When we divided 2 positive numbers, our answer was, positive. When we multiplied a positive times a negative, our answer was negative. When we divided a negative by a positive, our answer was negative. When we multiplied a negative times a positive, our answer was negative. And when we divided a positive by a negative, our answer was negative. When we multiplied 2 negative numbers, our answer was positive. And when we divided 2 negative numbers, our answer was also positive. So pause the video and see if you can come up with a rule, and then come back and let's talk about it. Okay, well hopefully you saw that if the signs were the same, meaning if they were both positive or if they were both negative, then our answer was positive. But if the signs were different, meaning a positive and a negative, then the answer was negative. And that's the rule for both multiplying and dividing. And we have some tricks that will help. The first trick is the smiley faces. Look at the eyes in the first smiley face. Both eyes are positive. So this smiley face person is in a good mood, they're happy, they are positive. The answer would be positive. Here, the eyes are the same. This person maybe is sleeping and having good dreams. So he's in a good mood, he's positive. But this third smiley face, his eyes are different. One eye is open, one eye is shut. It's like he got into a fight, right? So he's not in a good mood, he's negative. So this is a trick. If both of your signs are positive or both of your signs are negative, then you're going to be happy. You're going to be in a good mood, so your answer is positive. If your signs are different, one is positive and one is negative, then you're not going to be in a good mood. You're going to be a negative person. See the frowny face? Then the other trick we have is the triangle, where at the top of the triangle we put a positive sign, and at the bottom 2 angles, bottom 2 corners, we put negatives. So if we have start with a positive number and we multiply a positive times a negative, then our answer is going to be a negative. Oops. Try it the other way. If we have a negative and we multiply or divide by another negative, then our answer is positive. Okay. So these are little tricks that will help you out. Now let's go ahead and work on some examples. Okay, let's practice. 4 times negative 7. If you need to use your multiplication chart, that's fine. I'm actually, yeah, go ahead and use your multiplication chart if needed. I know that 4 times 7 is 28. Oops. I know that 4 times 7 is 28. But now I just need to determine, is this a positive or a negative 28? Oops. Sorry, I got to clean up. And I put our tricks down at the bottom. I don't know why it's doing that. All right, so it's 28. Is it a positive or a negative? Well, I'm going to use my smiley faces. The signs are different. The 4 is positive, the 7 is negative. So when I have different signs, my smiley face is not smiling. He's unhappy. So my answer is going to be a negative 28. Okay. Over here I have 9 times 3. They're both, I know 9 times 3 is 27. And they're both positive. So when I come down here with my smiley faces and I have both positive numbers, then he's happy, so it's a positive 27. Next one, 8 times negative 7. 8 times 7 is 56. But it's a positive times a negative. So I'm going to use my triangle. I have a positive, and I'm multiplying it by a negative. So my answer is negative. So this is going to be a negative 56. So go ahead and try the last 3 problems on your own. Pause the video, and then come back to check your answers and see how you did. Okay, well, hopefully you saw a positive times a positive is a positive. So the answer for D is positive 16. Negative times a negative is also a positive. So positive 42 is the answer for E. And then another negative times a negative is going to give you a positive 8 for F. The division is done the same way, except for instead of multiplying, you're dividing. Again, if you need to use your multiplication chart, feel free. Negative 6 divided by 2. I know that 6 divided by 2 is 3, and then I just have to use my tricks. If I have a negative divided by a positive, they're different signs, so my answer is going to be a negative 3. A negative and a positive come down here at the eyes. Where's the negative positive? Right here. He's frowning, he's not happy, so he's going to be negative. If you use the triangle, a negative divided by a positive is going to equal a negative. So go ahead and pause the video and try the rest of the problems yourself, and then come back and check your answer. Okay, negative 25 divided by negative 5. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. For C, we have a negative divided by a positive. So that's going to give you a negative answer. A positive divided by a positive is a positive. Okay. There we go. So this is a positive 5. A negative divided by a negative, same signs, so your answer is positive 9. A positive divided by a negative, they're different signs, so your answer is negative. If the signs are the same, your answer is positive. If the signs are different, your answer is going to be negative.